Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this ARPAS-UK CPD session with Esri UK. We're delighted that Owen and Mark can join us from Esri, and they are going to take us through some really great ideas and plans on how you can make the most of your drone data capture. We will be recording the session, as I just mentioned, so please keep your cameras off and your microphones down as well. There will be time for a Q&A session at the end, so please use the Q&A section down here. It should probably pop up on the bottom of your screen. Any questions that we don't get around to answering, we will make a note of them, and Mark and Owen have kindly offered to respond in format, and we'll send those answers out with the link to watch again in due course, because I know not everyone can attend today. We're delighted to make a start. So I'm now going to hand over to you, Mark and Owen. I'm going to turn my own camera and microphone off.
Thank you very much, Eleanor. Just welcome everybody to today's session. We'd also like to thank ARPAS for inviting us to present to their members today and the wider audience. So today we're going to explain what a successful drone program looks like from Esri UK's point of view. So today's session, I first want to introduce myself and my colleague in a bit more depth. I'm Owen Lauder. I work as Esri UK as an account manager for drone organisations. So in my role, I'm looking to expand the use of photogrammetric engines across drone operators in the UK. Also like to introduce my colleague Mark Clues. So Mark is the drone technical leader at Esri UK. He has domain expertise across the defence, national security and public safety space with many years of experience using this type of programme. So on today's agenda, I will briefly introduce who Esri UK is and what our values are. I'll then describe the basis of the ARPAS system and how the drone programs relates to this. From this, we will explain in depth the stages of the drone program, starting with how to plan an effective mission to capture the highest quality of data, all the way through to the efficient sharing and dissemination methods. We'll also provide some examples on how to make the most value out of your data for this enhanced end user experience. So hopefully once we've gone over that agenda, we're going to allow for a good chunk of time at the end of the session to do a Q&A. So like Eleanor said, please do enter your questions in the Q&A tab below. We're hoping to cover them all, but if we don't, we're more than happy to follow them up via email. Next slide, please, Mark. So these are the learning objectives of today. They're part of the drone program. So how to plan and capture a mission, looking at autonomous flight paths, looking at this scalable cloud environment for processing your raw data and your drone imagery. We'll look at some management aspects of a program, and then we'll show some examples of how to share and disseminate and what the end user experience could be like. Next slide, please, Mark. So who are we at Esri UK? We were formed in 1969 as a non-profit organisation that was founded by a bloke called Jack Dangermond. So now many years on from this, we're now the global market leader in geospatial analytics, and we're split into commercial distributors across the globe. And so we provide a range of applications, off-the-shelf software and services to achieve these certain types of analytics. We've thrived from being at the forefront of innovation, working with organisations from central government all the way down to small-scale commercial consultancies. Furthermore, we provide a system and service that is user-centric, so it allows us and you guys to understand your business challenges so that we can work towards them collaboratively to find these viable solutions. On this diagram on the left, it allows you to visualize the context of what GIS is, so a geographical information system, and what it can do. I won't dwell on this too much, but so in short, the central image is the GIS system, which is this centralized place for connecting various different forms of data, taking this data and visualizing it in a locational format to unlock these patterns that you can't usually see with the naked eye. And once this is visualized, we want to take that product or the mapping solution, and we want to share it out to the various different user types and clients through the applications, the viewers, and the reporting dashboards and story maps that are outlined on the above diagram. Next slide, please, Mark. So how does this all work together with the drone program? So expanding on this system of connectivity, we're going to explain how the processes of capturing data that is compatible with GIS, such as drone data. At Esri UK, we have a system that incorporates a photogrammetric engine, which can then store, manage, process your data, which can therefore interlink with this system and disseminate to the relevant users through the sharing capability. I'd now like to pass over to Mark, who will introduce and start to explain the initial steps in the drone program.
Thanks, Owen. Thank you very much for your time. We're going to make this as interesting as we can, and hopefully as informative. But let's step through the 3 stages, or we've got it set up as 3 stages on this drone program. The plan and capture piece. Before we sort of talk about those bits, there's also a management piece, management of the drones and batteries. And Owen's going to talk about that later, and he's got a slide on what it looks like. But in terms of the plan, let's face it, the drone is flying around in the air. We want that camera positioned in the right place and taking the appropriate numbers of cameras at the right height, which is going to give you the resolution. So it's really important to plan that mission properly. So we get the right number of images and the right sort of data. And of course, the last thing we want to do is to mess it up and have to go away and come back. And there's all sorts of reasons, obvious reasons, like it's getting expensive, or in the DNS space, it's actually probably dangerous to go back again. So that's a critical piece there. We're going to show you some slides on what that might look like and give you a bit more detail. And then the second phase, and this is where this photogrammetric engine that Owen talked about sits. So we want to take the pictures and get them into that engine. And I guess a lot of you online will know what that's going to do. But just for you guys that don't know what we mean, is we're getting lots of pictures with overlaps, and the software is going to pick up common places, a corner of a window or a door or a manhole cover, or sometimes we put ground control points so we can identify and match up. So the software's picking up common points in each of those pictures and is then tying them together. And in terms of the ortho mosaic, it's sticking all the pictures together and making them fit the Earth's surface. So it's an ortho mosaic or a map. All the pictures now fit on the Earth's surface. You're going to see an example of that. And in terms of 3D, you'll hear reality mesh, 3D scene, 3D model. It's doing something very similar, but it's draping it not just on the ground, but over the buildings and the trees. So we're getting a full 3D model. The maths for it is really, really complicated. You need lots of processing power, but in terms of understanding what it's doing, it's actually very simple, getting those pictures, stitching them together. So that is what that sort of photogrammetric engine is doing. There's also a really important piece here. Owen's going to come back to it further on, but the management of the data. Typically, when you're flying these missions, you're probably going to capture 20 or 30 images, or 2,000 or 3,000 images at a time. And you want those images put in a sensible place. And if you're using the sort of cloud system that we're sort of measuring on here, it means that those images are going to be managed and looked after and secured for you. If you've done this sort of thing before on a workstation, you're pulling the SIM card out, got lots of pictures from different missions. Very quickly, your workstation is going to fill up with data, and it is a monumental pain looking after it. So in terms of cloud services, we want that done. Once that's been done, we can carry out some analytics on the data. And again, we're going to have a look at that later. But that central piece is critical. And we want it in the cloud because it's managed properly. We've got scalable processing. So when we run these processes to make the 3D meshes and the orthos, we can run them in parallel. On the workstation, they'll run one after the other and take a long time. We're going to put some processing power behind it and get it done quickly. And then the dissemination and sort of sharing piece. So if you imagine the drone's flying around and the operator's looking at his console, he can see that data. that is great, but only he can see it. So what we want is to get the data processed and out into web clients and applications that people can use to understand what they're doing, do some planning, basically do their job. So the reason that drone is flying around is to take some pictures, to get it down to your friends, clients, customers, so that they can do their job. That's the workflow, the process that we're talking about here. So what I'll do now is I'll just go back and look at a bit more detail, just to illustrate some of those things that I've talked about. So this is just some screenshots of a typical planning application. This one's running on an iPad, but whatever the platform is. So depending on what type of structure or mission you're flying, you'll have different flight profiles. The top left is an area. We'll see a video of this in a minute. So you want to capture that area. The top right is a 3D structure. So rather than just fly over the top of it, we want to fly around the side of it at different heights so we can get the full 3D model. The bottom left, you can see the graphic there, that's flying down a major road, but it could be a railway line, something like HS2, or if you're an environmental company, perhaps a river line. So different flight profile. But again, going back to what I said right at the beginning, it's about capturing good data first time. We don't want to go back again. There's also another aspect. We don't want to capture too much data. So the flight profiles will be optimized for the sensor and the aircraft to get the right number of pictures, enough to run the engine through, and not so many. We just got redundant data. There's a few bits there on the terrain follow, but we're going to see that in a video. So I'm just playing a video of that process, that 2D mission. So on an iPad or in a web client, you would expect to draw out a polygon. This is the area that I want covered. Terrain follow is really important because if the ground falls away, we're going to lose resolution. We'll get more coverage on the image, but we'll lose resolution. And if the ground comes up towards us a hill, we're going to get better resolution, but you may not get full coverage. So we want a terrain follow enabled so we can capture data effectively. You can see on the bottom, we're getting indication of the number of pictures and the resolution. We want to save it away because we might go back tomorrow or next week or next month and do it again, especially in the case of AEC, architectural engineering and construction. And once it's saved away, we want to load it onto the drone, and you can see it's been loaded there. There's an indication of where the drone's sitting, where it's going to take off. We want to do all the standard checklist, the weather and so on. Have I done all the things I'm meant to do? This is clearly not me, it's someone else, it's a video. Review all that, and then tick the box that I know what I'm doing when I fly this thing. The mission will be then uploaded onto the aircraft. Again, this is not real time. Those camera checks could take a couple of minutes or so. And once it's ready, swipe the bar, however the application works, drone takes off and flies autonomously. Clearly the operator's got a main control and all this safety stuff he's normally doing, but he doesn't have to touch it unless it's something he's got to deal with in terms of safety. If there's a battery change required, will come down and allow you to swap the batteries and go back. But eventually when it comes back, it will land. And with these sort of applications, what you're expecting to see is the data uploaded immediately into the cloud so the processing can start. If you haven't got good comms in the field, it may be that you take it back to your hotel or your operation room and do it. So that's the general process there. I'll just play another little video because if we haven't used a flight application or one that's not compatible, we'll have to do it manually. And this little video sort of illustrates how we might do that. So the drone has landed, we'd have to pull the SIM card out with the SD card out with all the pictures on and put it onto our laptop or the workstation, which is where I'm sitting now. So we get the images into a place where it's accessible. Interface perhaps like this. I'm telling it to automatically process. Don't have to select the images that we're going to process. I've just selected a handful there on the video I've made for you and dropped them on the interface, 24. We could be loading a couple of thousand. I ran this video just a couple of days ago. Obviously, it depends on the upload speed and the size of the images that are going, but you get a feel there. This was running real time of how long that may take. So drag and drop, upload them, and as soon as that is uploaded, then the process is going to start to generate those products, the orthos and the mosaics that we talked about. So let's look at some examples here of what these derived products are, and I've given you an indication. That the top left is one of the two important ones. Those 3D point clouds and meshes. The one on the right is the ortho mosaic. That's where we stuck them together and they fit the Earth's surface. So it's not 3D, it's a 2D, but that sits in the correct place in the X and Y. There are other products that these photogrammetric engines will produce that you may need, and certainly ANC, things like digital elevation, surface models, inspection imagery. So that's a pretty typical use case. And bottom right, clearly you need to be flying the right sort of sensor on your aircraft, but the same sort of process happens with these thermal cameras. Again, you can do a 3D or a 2D there. So those are the derived products that these photogrammetric engines are producing. And I'll just hand back to Owen to go on to the next stage in terms of management.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, after the data is captured and uploaded, I suppose management, it really is a vital aspect of this system. And to have this incorporated into a scalable cloud environment, it allows for this efficient raw data management. And in addition as well to this, fleet management. So the fleet management side of things, it can be viewed in a simple dashboard interface, which allows you to view the pilot's hours in like a graphical format, or even in like a map view in terms of hotspots. So looking at the location of the flights as well. In addition to this, you can monitor the aircraft information. So looking at each individual drone that you've flown in terms of its flight hours, type of drone, latest flight, and even documentation expiry. So something else to take and to note of this management is the battery health and degradation. So on the screenshots you've got on the left, you can really see how you can view this and how you can analyze this in terms of the battery's degradation, average lifespan, and then assess that against the flight hours and all the pilot information as well. So you've got all your fleet management in the same centralized environment, as well as the processing and uploading piece. Away from the fleet management side of things, being able to analyze and manage all of your raw data is also an aspect to this system. So as it's a cloud environment, all the data is stored and maintained in the cloud with unlimited space. So if you're wanting to, I suppose, expand on that, not just the storage, but look into specific imagery, you can use what we have called a photo inspect tool. And this is where it's able to bring up the highest quality raw image data for that specific location, and you can download that single image of interest. So if we're looking at the top right image, you've got all of your raw data stored within this cloud. And if you're going into the derived products that Mark's just stated, you can then use these tools to inspect and pull away the raw data from the derived products that is most interest to you. You can also upload and manage additional data sets that sort of complement your missions, so such as ground control points, which will then improve the accuracy and quality of your products. So you can have all this stored and managed within this environment and program that we're outlining. Next slide, please, Mark. So for the analytics, now we have visibility of the derived products. The end user or client quite often wants to see, I suppose, what measurements and variables can come from the products that you've produced. On the screen here, we've got a variety of examples of analytic tools that are built into this workflow. So if I just start with the left-hand side, excuse me, we have measurement tools, which are quite simplistic aspects, but they're great They're a great tool to provide insight and understanding of features. So the example we've got on the screen here is of an open cast mine, and we've provided cubic volumetric measurements and distance tools. And this gives an insight into, I suppose, site management, the logistics of the site. So you can provide all these graphical and numerical values to your end user or even internally. So in addition to this, we have another tool which is specific to sort of a multiple mission, which is flown at the same location. So the timeline comparison tool in the top right-hand corner, it potentially is to understand the stages of a construction project, or in a more general term, just to see the development of a site or seasonal changes to something like biodiversity and other use cases like that. So it's a simple tool which you can swipe across and understand 2 different timestamps of the same location. We have a tool as well that monitors the sort of terrain, topography, just by looking at sort of an elevation cut through. And we also have additional tools to this, such as stated earlier, like the photo inspect tools and basic annotations. So all of these tools are here really to enhance the value of your data for internal analytics, or to provide a more insightful, knowledge-based end report to the client. So next slide, please, Mark, and I will pass back to Mark to explain the sharing and dissemination factor.
Okay, so we're now at this sort of the end of that stage 2. So we've done the planning capture piece, and we've done the processing and analytic piece. So we're still in the sort of the UAV, the drone software. And what we want to do now is get it out of that system and into these online portals, or shared out to our friends, customers, clients, wherever this information, wherever this data is going. And there are 3 main options here. The first one is, and it's been around for a very long time, it's old school, but there's nothing wrong with it, but just exporting those products onto your local workstation and email them or copy them onto another SD card and get that sent across. So there's a second one is a very quick and dirty, I'm going to show you in a minute, is just copying the URL and sending it to them, emailing them or putting it through a Teams channel, so they can just view the data straight away. There's no specialized sort of viewer for it, other than one you're going to get. And then the third one is to share it. We've got the ArcGIS platform here, but into one of these common sort of user portals. So let's just have a quick look at that in the actual video so you can see it. I'll just play the video through. There's an issue with, this is recorded with audio, but I'll talk over the top to it and turn it down. So this is the photogrammatic sort of manager piece. And what we want to do is get this data shared out. So the first option is export it. So I've just clicked down there and we can see all those derived products that we talked about. So the ortho mosaic, the surface models. There are other sort of value add like the contours, point cloud. You can see the 3D mesh, the processing report, which some people might be interested in. Perhaps just a PDF of that view. And any of those analytic measurements that Owen just showed you, they're all available as well. So we can tick that onto your workstation and actually then do all your old school work. But the second option that I talked about, I've just clicked the share button down the bottom. There's a URL. So that URL can just be handed across. What I've done here is I've just gone to my own browser and I'm going to paste it straight into the browser. You could email that to someone or send it through a Teams channel or a chat channel. They just click on it and they get not the full manager interface, just that single layer. I've done the ortho here. It could have been the 3D model, the point cloud, or some combination with the measurements. So that disseminates it very, very quickly, but they're stuck with the interface that you see on the screen there. This is probably the really modern way to do it. So this is those online portals that I talked about. You can see I'm connected up to one of the ArcGIS online portals. And I've got the option of actually selecting the products that I want, some or all. And once I press that publish button, this data will be lifted and put into the portal. There are some issues on what you lift and what you do. Clearly, you perhaps don't want to take all the imagery, you want to leave that in the cloud, but certainly the derived products, you want to push them through from there. So if we just now look through on what we can actually do with those derived products once we get into the portal. So the collaboration and sharing options, Owen hinted at it in that second sort of architectural graphic he showed you. There are operational dashboards and 2D web applications and mobile applications. You can see the graphics there of the sort of things we're talking about. I'm going to show you a 3D one in a minute, but the point is those derived products can go into these applications, but we've also now got the option of adding in other layers. So building footprints, if we've got some environmental information, or if it's public safety, there may be some sort of operational fire, police, ambulance data that you might want to put on top of it. Story maps are just a very simple briefing product that are perhaps suitable for a public briefing or briefing to some of the team leaders and so on. Mobile applications, bottom right, you can see 2 examples, and you've seen some of that data already in the actual mobile application. And the last one, XR, extended reality applications. So these are things like these 3D bird tables that you see, or you're using one of these 3D headsets. These data sets will go into those two. There are processes to actually get them into there. Yep. These are going to be more prevalent as we move forward and into the future. So if I now just go down and I'll play you an example. Just turn the volume down there and I'll talk you through it. So what we're seeing here is a very simple 3D web viewer. So we're in a browser here, and what you're seeing is a 3D model of Chatham in Kent. In fact, these models are pretty well countrywide. Certainly the case of this one. It's Ordnance Survey master map. Artificial intelligence has been run over the data set. It's a 2D data set. So anything that gives an indication of height, so there may be a building height, there may be floor levels, we can extrude to that. There may be other information about the actual shape of the roofs and so on. Very similar on the trees. We're analyzing the imagery and we're identifying the crowns of the trees. And if we can tell the type of tree, we'll give it the appropriate model. And then we can bolt in this case, the reality mesh. This is flown by Scotty from Paragon Drones, and we can add it in. So we've got all the other value add and the derived product. And in this particular browser, we've got, it's in 3D, so we've got some 3D tools to do measurements and so on and so forth, and perhaps slicing through. So there's a very simple example. Here's the same sort of 3D browser. This is an AEC, architectural engineering construction example. So this is the site being cleared. This has been the site being marked out. So this is Owen's multiple mission example. So we're flying it where you can see the date timestamps there once a month. It's very useful in terms of site visits. Perhaps everybody doesn't need to go to site once a week or once a month, but we can have a look at these, see what's changed, and only go down if we need to. And right at the very end, the connection to CAD systems like AutoCAD are really strong, so we can bring in the building information model. In this case, it's a Revit model, so we can see how it's going to look when we finished. So it gives us a whole load of really interesting options and capabilities to share this data out to our clients. They're not interested in the drone apart from the fact it's actually going to take some pictures for us. So what I'll do now, and we're just coming towards the end, I'll just hand back to Owen to give you a summary.
Thank you, Mark. That was really insightful for the end user stuff. But I suppose just to summarize today's session, what we've outlined is this seamless workflow. So there's a lot of, I know in the drone industry, there's a lot of different systems that do various different aspects of what you want to achieve, such as the fleet management or an autonomous flight planning application. But what we've wanted to state is that it allows you, either as drone operators or end users that just want the value of the data, is to bring it all together, all these individual components, so that the data capture, the processing, the analytics, can then all come together so that you've got it in a single centralized hub, so that you can best manage your data, store this data, and analyze it and share it out at the speed of relevance, all in one place. So really, as the key takeaways from today, I hope you understand the workflow we've outlined with the steps that we've produced and stated. But obviously there's the workflow steps on the screen, but I suppose the key takeaway from here is that it's all a centralized one workflow that you can start off really from the basic stages of flying the drone and capturing it, all the way to creating interactive web applications and exports that brings your data to a much more valuable place for a client. So yeah, if you just pop onto the next slide, please, Mark. So I'd just like to thank everyone for listening for this presentation today. And I hope it's been a bit insightful during your lunch hour for a CPD session. So what we're going to do now, I think we've got a fair chunk of time, actually, 15 to 20 minutes, is open it up to the audience. So we'll be taking questions off everyone. And so for the structure of this, it would be really helpful if everyone stayed on mute, and we'll just sort of enter the Q&A into the tab below. I can see we've got a fair few already come through, but if you do have any pondering on your mind, please do chuck them in. We have plenty of time. So thank you, everyone, and we'll go into the Q&A now.
So do you?
Yeah, thank you very much indeed, Owen and Mark. That was a very fascinating insight. I will handle the question side of things, and you can decide how you want to answer. I think it's probably the easiest.
Excellent.
We'll start with the first question, which is, are these systems likely to be available for the DJI Mavic 3 drone in the future?
So it's probably me. I mean, Owen can help me out, but probably those first three questions on the Mavic 3 drone brand, that's probably all the same question. But I don't want to go into specifics about Esri software. This is more general. The issue here is when you do this planning piece, there may be a planning application that comes with your drone. So I know GJ have a planning application, so you could use that one. But essentially what's got to happen is someone's got to draw these boxes that you saw me draw along the river or the railway line, and it's got to get onto the drone to tell it where to fly and what height and how to point the camera and so on. So the drone needs what's called an application processing interface. So you've got to be able to talk to it. So you're probably going to find that the drone manufacturer will probably have one of those planning applications. There are some general ones like ours, like the Esri ones, that can support a whole load of manufacturers' drones, and the Mavic is a yes as far as Esri is concerned. But you might want to check which planning application you're going to use. So I'm not saying you've got to use the Esri one. You can use the one that's appropriate. Does that answer that particular question?
I think that probably does.
Yeah. Just to expand on it, I suppose, from our point of view, in this program, we do have a list of supported drones and supported cameras that work for this specific program. We have a documentation on it. I suppose, Eleanor, I don't know whether I can just throw a link in the chat, or so, because that will probably answer the second one.
In the chat, and if you make sure that you send the link through to me, we can send that out too.
Okay, excellent. I'll pop the link in the chat that shows most of the supported drones. This documentation, I believe, is maybe a year old now, so there are a couple more of the newer drones in addition to this. And we do have ongoing conversations with our partner HeliGuy and I suppose drone manufacturers to keep you up to date with our software. But I'll pop the chat in, and I suppose if you have anything to add on that, Mark, as to what is it coming in the future for our software, then please do.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a commercial reality. What you'll find is that the drones that are more widely used will get supported straight away, and the ones that are less used may take a while, or if it's a really niche one, perhaps not at all. So it's just a matter of finding out which ones are supported. Do you want to move on to the
Exactly. In many places across Africa where internet connectivity is challenging, how does the cloud processing compare to the desk-based application for data processing?
Right. So we focused on the cloud-based one, and you heard all the good reasons why you want to do that. You don't have to do it because there may be use cases, and that's a good one. Certainly in case of perhaps the military and public safety, they don't want to connect to the internet at all. So you'll have to use a desktop-based one. What we quite often see is with our customers is they use both. So they've got the cloud-based one, and if you can connect to the internet, that's great. And if you've got problems with connectivity or a special security use case, you process it locally. So that is the answer to it. But what I would say, even in Africa, I mean, the internet connectivity is not well, it's challenging, but it's really good in some places. And that may be your planning application, the data comes off the drone and you go back to your hotel or something like that. So it's a bit of, you know, which one's best. And if you've got sort of both use cases available, get both options available. Hope that didn't sound too glib and too much of a smart ass answer, but there we go.
No, I think that was a very good answer. Thank you. So from Sam, does it work with non-geotagged images, e.g. for performing an inspection inside a building? Right,
so the short answer is on certainly in our tech, no, it needs that geotag. But because we have this as a use case, we're going to fly the drones inside somewhere or down tunnels, you can put in a spoofed geotag. So if you do know the location, put the right one into the geotags on the thing. Doesn't have to be exact because the photogrammetric engine is going to match it up. And we do have examples where we've done that. In fact, Paragon Drones, who I mentioned, who did that at Royal Engineers Museum in Chent, these guys fly those sort of missions. So no, it won't. You've got to do something to it to put the geotags in.
Okay, thank you. That's useful. I think Annalisa's question has probably been answered because has been sent to about which drones and drone manufacturers are automatic.
There's a sort of a sideways sort of question on that on the drone flight path. That certainly we're chatting to our customers, having generated this flight path, and we know when we're going to fly it. We might want to put that into the CAA or the FIA in the States. So I know there are a number of websites now where you can look at where you can and where you can't fly drones, but also where you can log where you are going to fly. So if you're looking at that, you can see the flight path of someone who's going to fly it today. So there is an extra bit to that question.
That's very helpful. A question from Leanne, does the Esri app cost extra to the normal license that has apps such as Field Maps and ArcGIS Pro?
Oh, yes. Thanks for passing over, Mark. Yeah, so this, in a sense, what we've presented today is Esri's drone program. So as you've stated there, Field Maps and ArcGIS Pro, they are individual products from Esri UK, and our drone workflow that we say today is another product. So you would essentially need a separate license, but it's different capabilities, I suppose, for different products. If you do want to, I suppose, speak to us about that or follow it up, then please do say. Our emails are still on screen, or we can follow up through Eleanor as well to talk about that.
Indeed, I'll make sure that your emails are on the follow-up email after this. Have you got any quality checks built into your workflow other than the photogrammetry report?
So I'll get that one. So within the sort of the photogrammetric engine, that's where the quality checks are. There's a report in there. But once you've moved the derived products into the platform, in fact, one of the products you could use to do this is ArcGIS. It's just ArcGIS Pro. It's a high-end ArcGIS workstation. So having got that data in there, you can carry out additional checks on that, you know, the accuracy checks and so on. So get it into the platform, back into the GIS system, and you can carry out more checks on it. But as far as the photogrammetric engine, it's the ones you've just mentioned.
That's great. How does this software fare on iOS Mac?
I'll get this one again. So in our terms, that planning application you saw me play through the videos, that's an iPad only, so it's not an Android. That's a planning app. The actual management interface, and those are the screen grabs that you saw Owen talking about on the management and analytics, and you saw me in it when I was sharing data out. That's a web client, so it runs on whatever, you know. obviously a decent sort of up-to-date browser. So it doesn't matter at that stage. And once you've put it into the platform again, viewing them doesn't matter, as long as you've got a browser, or in the case of a mobile application, field maps, which someone will mention, you could view it through there perhaps, that's Android or iOS as well.
We have a second question from Annalise. You work with public agencies, and we've just been briefed, that's ARPAS-UK, have just been briefed about the risk of third parties who could be interested in accessing the images and data, especially when it's about infrastructures. How do your products deal with these specific issues?
Right, so it's cloud-based, and you obviously have to have a login to get there. So all these sort of derived products and those images sit in there, and you've got to be given access to it. So if you give people access, they can see it. If they haven't, they can't see it. When you move it into the sort of the portal, you've got the same sort of issues. You've got user, if you share it publicly, clearly everyone's going to see it, but you've got controls on who you share it with and how it's shared. What I would say is the derived products probably are going to portals. That's what people are going to see, but the raw images, you're probably going to leave them in site scan unless you want to move them across for a specific reason. But in terms of the portals, there's sort of US standards on security, and certainly ArcGIS Online is going for ISO accreditation. If you're working in the sort of UK space, it's sort of data up to official, if that means anything to you, is typically the sort of level it might operate to. Having said that, you could have your own on-premise portal, and the sort of the protection that's associated with it is all about the portal and how you've secured it. I hope I've answered that properly, but come back to me at the end and email and I can give you more detail on it.
I think that was a very comprehensive question. A very good one. This better than Pix4D.
You can add more.
Yeah. Okay.
Pix4D is just one of these photogrammetric engines. Our particular engine is something called Shore, and probably what you want to do, we won't do this here, is just take the same data, run it through them both, and see what you think. Is what I'd say. I don't know if you want to add to it, Owen.
Yeah. So, Pix4D is a photogrammetric engine, something like we've just shown you, and it's got its own engine, which is obviously the Pix4D engine. Mark's highlighted that our Shore engine, it arguably is a lot better in quality. Obviously, we don't want to just state that against competitors on this, but I suppose as well as looking at just the photogrammetric engine quality, Pix4D, what we've outlined today is that, yes, we've got that whole workflow. So Pix4D is essentially just stage 2 in what we outlined, that processing piece. But what we're saying is that we can keep everything in one place. So we've got the planning and capturing, or even if you don't want to do autonomous flights through us, you've got the capturing the data and uploading, but it's all centralized and stored and managed in one place. And then the value in what we do at Esri UK is really around the sharing and disseminating to end users. So you've got the options with sharing, whether you want to push it into GIS and create these interactive viewers that Mark showed you, or whether you want to export the data or share it out quickly. You've got those options, which probably leads me straight into the next question that I can see. And I'll just sort of go through it, saying, is there a cost for every customer that you share with? So it's down to how you share it. We stated in that presentation there, we've got 3 options. If you want to just simply export the data, which is quite an old-fashioned way of doing it and providing it to a client or an end user, then there's no cost to that. That's just downloading the raw data or downloading the derived products. The value in what we were showing you in that cloud environment is that you can copy that URL and share it out as a free web viewer. So that, again, if you want to share that out to hundreds of people, you just copy the URL and it's there for 30 days to that end user for free. If you're looking at a cost for the end user, it would probably be if you want to push it into ArcGIS. You can push it into ArcGIS and create these viewers that Mark's created and create them public. But if your data is tied down to a client and you want to keep your data secure and private, then they'll probably need a license to ArcGIS to be able to view that securely and privately. But that's really further down the line. We do have free ways of doing it. If you want to get it out quickly and to lots of different people, then there is free ways of sharing, but there are more tied down cost ways as well.
Should I just add a bit more to what Owen said there on the Esri portal or ArcGIS Online? If you share it publicly, you know, we're making the assumption you've already got the Esri platform. When you share it publicly, that's obviously free. But that security question applies. Everyone can see it. When you buy a license on the ArcGIS Online, basically what it's doing is giving someone what's called a named user, you know, a username and a password. And there is a cost associated with that because we've got to manage the data and make sure that other people aren't looking at it. So just a bit more on that. I think we're there on.
Okay, and we have another question from somebody who couldn't make the Q&A function work or wasn't working for him at the time. Hello, and thanks for the presentation. I've asked before, but would it would be very useful to have the option of buying a droned map / cloud processing license on a much shorter timescale than the minimum of 1 year. Competitor software processing options give options for a 1-month rental, and this would be very useful as there's a reluctance by the organisation to fully invest in long-term license, as the applications and benefits still need to be promoted and proved commercially.
Yeah, so I'll take this one, Mark. It's something, as the account manager for drone organisations, it's something that pops up very regularly, and we can obviously appreciate it as drone consultancies, organisations. Your work sometimes isn't frequent, regular. You're waiting for contracts, so it's a conversation I'm constantly having, and it's something that we're hoping to evolve in our licensing. Currently, the answer to that is no. Our licensing for the drone stuff is still a minimum of an annual term basis, but it would be something to definitely get in touch with me about, as I'm hoping there will be changes in the near future to that. But if you do want to reach out to me or provide your email, I'll keep in touch when something changes.
That's great. I think that's the last of the questions that we've had submitted. Are there any other questions that you typically get asked that we haven't covered here at all?
Yeah, I suppose there is one more in the chat window, and it's probably one that we do regularly get if we speak to someone, and is the flight planning app coming to Android? I suppose I don't want to beat around the bush with this, but in short answer, we don't have any near future plans for it to go onto Android. We do get this question regularly, and I do wish it will change, but I haven't seen any product plans for this to change in the near future. I don't know if you've got anything to add on that, Mark.
No, you're right. I'm certainly speaking to the product managers backing in Esri Inc. The answer is no. It's just an honest answer. It's not coming in the immediate future. There are technical reasons because of different versions and the interfaces on Android, and on the iPad it's just a lot simpler to do, but it's all going to look the same. That's probably not the answer you wanted to hear, but that's just the honest truth. There's also one question that I typically get asked, and people will say, that whole workflow, how long does it take? Certainly in the case of AEC, then might take a bit more time, but in public safety, that's quite critical. It's a bit of a string question. How many pictures are you taking? I don't know if you saw when I pressed the button. If it's 20 or 30 images, is 20 to 30 minutes typically. 100 or 2 might take up to an hour. If you're running a couple of thousand, that could take 4, 5, 6 hours, something like that. So that's the big crunch on the data. And then in terms of disseminating it, that's very, very short. So in terms of getting it published, the big crunch, the big bit in this workflow that's going to take time is how many pictures have you got, and that take a various amount of time. But again, going back to the reality of it, if you've only got half an hour, only take 20 or 30 pictures. If you've got all day, take 2,000 or 3,000 by all means. Certainly in some of the CPD days, we talk with some of our public safety customers. Those are the con-ops and the workflows that we're developing. It's going to take this time to do that. You've only got that much time there. You're going to have to constrain what you're going to do. But that is one question that we always get. which I haven't seen here.
That's a very good top tip, actually, indeed. Thank you. I don't think we've got any other questions here. We'll give everyone a moment to come back to us. I will be sending out an email in the next day or so with the link to watch this again and the Q&A side of things. And obviously also Owen and Mark's contact details.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed, Mark and Owen, for providing the CPD session for us. We're very grateful indeed, and I think I can probably say on behalf of everyone, thank you. Really informative, and we hope we'll see you again soon.
Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you for the invite to present as well. It's been great.
That's our pleasure. I'm just going to add a little plug in here. ARPAS-UK members have got the option of a members-only webinar next week on data security with the Centre of Protection for National Infrastructure, which is tied in today. If you're interested in attending, you either need to be a member of the Survey Association or ARPAS-UK to be able to do so. We're always delighted to see new members, so do please pop onto the website, which is www.arpas.uk, and join up. We'll be delighted, obviously, to see lots more people, always. And this will continue the CPD sessions as we go along. Thank you very much indeed. And any more questions? Last call for questions. No, I think we're there. Thank you very much then, Mark and Owen, and I shall terminate the session here. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.